When you look at the ancient temples,
Hmm.
you'll find that there's temples underneath the temples, like, um, deep in the ground is the Temple of Osiris in Egypt. It's one of the earlier temples. When you go around the world, there's the oldest of the oldest of the oldest temples. They're temples to the sun. And under many temples, like a pantheon, like to Jupiter or this or that or this or that, underneath you'll see in the archaeological records, there's temples to the sun.
Hmm.
So, what is it about these early times in the temples of the sun? Well, two things. One is when you go back really very far in the past, you like the Sumerian histories. They
Hmm.
start off with the history book starts off with their history, and they start off with the gods. They start off with other races that are not Homo sapiens and that are more evolved, usually giants. Um, and there's even like different phases of the gods. And it's clearly seen with the Greeks, where they
Hmm.
have the gods and the titans.
Right.
Titans are taller, they're bigger, and actually they're more powerful. And so when you start to look around the whole globe, China, South America, Indians, all of, Druids, all of them, the whole earth, you find everybody's talking about these more evolved beings. And most of them, if not all of them, their most central thing is the temple to the sun. So I'm suggesting, and others suggest, that these are um, pre-flood civilizations that have survived and perhaps have thought to come back and teach us.
Wow.
So, and there's a lot of really good stuff on that. Laura Atwood has a real book on the religion of the sun, and William Henry on Gaia has Ascension Keepers, and there's many of them. But in essence, it's what was the emphasis super duper way back.
Hmm.
And I love the way William Henry does it. He divides it between um, rules and just simple oneness. So
Hmm.
think of rules as the 10 commandments, as things recommended to do in, the Muslims, the Hindus, whatever.
Yeah.
It's so it's like the when you really go back far, it's that you're God, look within. And they have a lot of detailed techniques and really cool stuff. But in essence, it's a quick grace, loveness, forgiveness. They would never do a sacrifice of an animal or a person. They're vegetarians. They're into resurrection. They're interested in ascension directly, grace, forgiveness. They're developing your third eye. They often have the elongated skulls. Um, and so they have this like I don't know, divine grace.
Yeah.
But a lot of people just couldn't relate to the divine grace, and so later on I think they came in with rules. Think to the Old Testament. Okay, don't kill, don't steal, don't cheat,
Yeah.
na.
Yeah.
But and people get carried away with those, so they become hammers instead of hammers to hit you rather
Yeah.
than hammers to build.
Yeah.
But anyway, so when you get into these ancient temples, um, it's like this magnanimous instant grace. And to accompany that, I have music,
Yeah.
that theme. And it's coming in from a book from Dean Hammer, 2004. He's a geneticist. And he identified a gene that only people that are very, very, very spiritual have. It's called
Yeah.
VTMAT2. I don't know. It's got a name.
Okay.
And you can look at it under a microscope. And they define spirituality as someone who can get really totally lost in the moment, someone who feels connected to everyone, someone who's into mysticism. Probably everybody on the show has this gene.
Yes. Yes.
Probably everybody has a gene, but
Yeah.
it's dwarfed in some people.
Yes.
And my dear friend Sherry Edwards, bless her soul,
Mhm.
um, identified the frequency of the gene, its activator, and its protein. So even if it's dwarfed, I'm thinking, well, I would suspect the Dalai Lama has a bigger gene or more presence or than I do. And but I have the frequency of this gene in Sound and Music, and its activator, its protein. So anyone who comes to the class, we're going to be working with the God gene and coming home with the God gene music.
God gene. Okay, I was just going to ask if it's the God gene because yeah, I had that. How in sync we are because that was my next question to ask you. Well, there you go. But okay, so that's awesome. So it almost kind of sounds like you're coming to class and you're learning a lot and you're really experiencing healing in class.
Absolutely. Like,
Yeah,
may think of a Reiki treatment. Absolutely.
yeah.
And then when you know, like the ancient, how did these ancient people, how did they heal? It's quite different than our healing techniques today. And I'll just give you a little story. Think that we think Gaia is a spirit that inhabits Earth. Well, they thought there's a spirit that inhabits the sun, hence the temples to the sun. So think that God has a god, Helios, I think, and I'll channel him too. But they would they weren't as involved into matter. They're looking into the god of the sun. Well, I don't know, is there a god of the solar system? What
Mhm.
about the universe?
Right, right,
And what about multi-universes?
right.
So if and here's another thing. We think of two violins and you play this A string, it resonates with this A string. They often talked about resonance without that name, but they would say this solar system resonates with that one. And they're talking about resonance between, let's say, Earth and Sirius or Orion or Arcturus. They're talking about energy exchanges like we would think of between violins in a galactic sense.
Hmm.
So they had this broader view of God being consciousness and all that is, and they looked big, really big,
Yeah.
and so there was a lot of meditations. But one of the ways they did that was that they tried to emulate the bigger gods, meaning um, if you could view consciousness from outside the solar system, and they would like think of like a breath in out
Hmm.
2 seconds. They
Hmm.
would think of like day and night 2 seconds.
Right.
So they would breathe, they would live in harmony with every fractal of God, with they would the circadian rhythms. And I believe in 2017 someone got a Nobel Prize just for showing the importance of circadian rhythms. You know, blending your life with the sun and the moon, using them as like a cosmic vending machine.
Hmm.
And so they found that, I think it was again, many of the current diseases, AHDH, obesity, inflammation, infection, diabetes, heart disease, gastrointestinal stuff, arthritis, mood disorders, all this stuff um, is tremendously reversed by adhering to circadian rhythms of sun and moon. So, you know, you can use them in a big way, and there's a ton of techniques that we're going to learn and experience, but you
I
can use
love
them in
it.
big ways, small ways. I mean,
And-
use them for sleep, weight gain, for
Wow.
um, acuity in your mind, building your light bodies, reducing pain, all kinds of stuff.
Amazing. So everybody listen to that and what you're going to learn and how you can heal yourself. Like so many different things or be in more alignment.